Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the latest HubSpot training webinar with the B2B Marketing Lab. It's Matt Creswick here from B2BML. I'm the Group Head of Marketing here at the B2B Marketing Lab, for those of you who haven't been on one of our webinars before. And we've been running these webinars for 7 weeks, every fortnight up in 2018. On the screen here, you can see the previous webinars that we've run over the last few months. If you sign in via the form that you signed in to sign up for the webinar series, on this thank you page, you can get access to all of the on-demand webinars to watch whenever you like. In addition, the ones that are coming up, obviously today we're looking at how to set up lead scoring in HubSpot. And over the next few weeks, we'll be focusing on buyer personas, content strategy, how to set up lead nurtures in HubSpot, and how to effectively segment your contact database. On top of that, we're actually looking for more ideas. We've got some ideas of stuff that we think you guys might want HubSpot training on. But obviously, if there's anything specific, then please do let us know, and we'll include that on the agenda moving forward. I think that's probably enough from me, though. Today, I'm joined by Jess Packer, who is the Client Services Director at the B2B Marketing Lab. Jess has been with the company for, I want to say, 5 years nearly? Nearly 5 years. And Jess basically heads up all of our HubSpot client accounts, so has a great depth of experience and knowledge in the tool. So I will pass over to Jess.
Fab. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the intro. So today we're going to look at how you can set up lead scoring in HubSpot. So just to get started on kind of why you would look at automating lead scoring in HubSpot. So the lead scoring tool is really useful to help you rank leads, basically. So it can be really useful if, in particular, you've got a high volume of leads that are coming through into your portal each month, and you need some kind of system in place to help you filter and prioritize those leads. So you can use a combination of lead scoring and the workflow tools to automate the handover of leads from marketing to sales. So when they reach a certain threshold, you can automate the handover, so either notify the sales team or change their lifecycle stage, any kind of trigger along those lines that can then pass those leads over to sales. You can also, if you're using an external CRM system like Salesforce, and you want to automate the process of moving those contacts from HubSpot into Salesforce or Dynamics, then you can also use lead score as a way of doing that, and again at a threshold that can help you. Prioritizing sales follow-up. So if you've got hundreds of leads coming through into your portal, then obviously working out which ones you want your sales team to focus on is really important. So again, a lead score can help you with that. But also, just as importantly, you can also downgrade leads. So if there are certain criteria that you know means a lead isn't relevant to you, then you can again use the lead score as a way of downgrading those people. So in terms of actually getting started, there's a number of steps that we would recommend that you do before you actually get started in HubSpot. So the first thing is to make sure that you've got a clear set of qualification criteria. So in other words, you know what it is, you know what a good lead looks like, and you know what a bad lead looks like. So these could include anything from job title, geography, a particular industry that's either relevant or not relevant, company size, email domain. So it might be that you only want to deal with people who have given you a business email address, and to filter out people who have given you a Gmail or an Outlook email address. You most likely probably want to filter out competitors. You certainly don't want to be wasting time chasing those people down. So just make sure that you know what these are. You've liaised with your sales team and you understand kind of the criteria that, as I said, either means they're a good lead or a bad lead. Then step 2 is to identify all of the engagement points on your website that signify interest or some kind of buying intent. So in particular, you should look at important website pages. So those might be views of your product pages, views of a pricing page that you might have, case studies, anything that kind of signifies that that person is further along the buying journey than kind of just obviously landing on your homepage and having a browse. Content downloads also important, but this is where you can start to kind of think about how these would be tiered. So a content download might not necessarily indicate buying intent. So if they've just downloaded a top tips ebook, then they may not be interested in buying from you just yet, but they have, shown some kind of interest, obviously, in the service that you provide simply by downloading that ebook. So that's a kind of indication for how many points you might want to start attributing. Other things, event registration forms, all other forms, obviously your contact us forms or demo request forms are really important. So make sure you've got those. And if you've got any kind of website chat, that's also really important to include if you're capturing people's data that way. Then, as I said, you're going to rank those based on buying intent. So putting, as I said, something like content downloads at the top, so you're going to give those fewer points compared to, a view of a product page or a pricing page, which hopefully you're going to give a fairly high number of points to. If possible, you want to try and group these actions together. So ideally, you don't want to be giving points for, if you've got in terms of content downloads, if you have things like reports, you have ebooks, and kind of other types of downloads, ideally you don't want to be giving, a different number to each one of those. If possible, you should be trying to group them together. So as an example, a download of an analyst report, you might feel that should have the same number of points as someone who submits on your contact us form. So you would group those two together. I've got an example that will hopefully help make that a bit clearer. Once you've grouped them together, then that's the point at which you can start to think about how many points you want to assign to each group. Don't assign too many points per group though, otherwise you'll end up with a massive lead score goal at the end, which isn't ideal. So try to keep it kind of reasonable. I think 100 is a fairly good lead score to aim for, and that's what we've got in the example here. So this is an example of kind of a model that I would suggest you use when you're putting this together. Now, this is a fairly complex example compared to, if you've only got a small amount of content on your website. But it's a nice way of seeing how you can group together different types of content and attribute points. So, for example, these guys will only attribute 10 points for a view of an ungated video. Or if somebody's visited the website 5 times in 1 week. 25 points for a blog subscription, 35 points for a form fill of just a general asset. Add on another 50 points if they've viewed a case study. And then you've got the kind of the big, buying intent actions. So, things like a contact us form submission, a demo request. And then you've also got kind of anything that you want to deduct points for. So with HubSpot, you can minus points just as much as you can add them. So if there are certain things that, as I mentioned, the qualifying criteria that indicate that they're a bad lead, then you can minus points if those come through. So for example, here, these guys would filter out if there was a sales job title or a competitor. Again, as I said, so that the sales team aren't chasing down leads. Fab. So that is effectively all of the preparation work that we would suggest that you do before you get started in HubSpot. Let's dive in now. So firstly, I'm just going to show you an example of how it can look once it's done. So lead scoring lives in your settings now. So if you click on the cog and then go to marketing and then lead scoring, and you'll see this is where all of this lives. So as I mentioned, you've got positive attributes, and that's where you're adding points, and you've got negative attributes where you're deducting points. And as you can see, you can add points based on a whole number of criteria. So whether that's geography, country, IP city, for example, the number of form submissions that person has submitted, so on and so forth. So if I just flip over to this portal so I can show you how you would go about doing that. So the first step is just to click Add New Set. And here is where you can add your points. So say we want to add 5 points. I just hit Set. And then you'll see, hopefully, this view is fairly familiar to you. This is the kind of standard criteria that you would see within HubSpot. So as I mentioned, there might be certain geographies that would add on, you would want to add points on because they're a good lead. So here you could just select country and then just add in whichever country would be particularly useful. So say United Kingdom. And you can add as many in here as you would want to. Then hit done, and that'll save it for you. So one thing obviously we mentioned was content downloads. So for this, you might actually want to look at using list membership. So just you could build a list basically of all of the top of the funnel ebooks that you have on your website, and you would just need to keep that list updated each time you published a new ebook. And then you could say basically if a contact is member of this particular list of top of the funnel ebooks, then we would want to give those people 15 points, for example, so on and so forth. So in terms of the negative attributes, an example we used was obviously the generic email domains, so like Outlook or Gmail. So here you would select contact property again. You'd select email, and then you could just simply say that it contains Google Mail, Gmail, or Outlook, for example. And then we can set that to, minus 50 points. Hit done. And then what that's going to do is if anybody does come through with one of those email addresses, then it will automatically deduct points from them and will stop your sales team, hopefully, chasing after those contacts. So before I wrap things up then, there are a whole host of different properties that you can do. We've looked at obviously contact properties, there's company properties in here, so you can do this based on the company as well. Deal properties, you've got particular activity as well, which you can base this on within the CRM. List membership, as we talked about, form submissions, all sorts. And you'll also see if you've got some integration set up with HubSpot, you'll see there's potentially some options here that will come off the back of those integrations and some of the properties that those will bring into HubSpot. So all in all, the actual process of building it out in HubSpot is fairly simple. It's just a case of working through the model, which I showed you earlier, and that can help just to go through this and make sure you've covered off all of your bases.
Thank you for that, Jess.
No worries.
Before, I know you've got some key takeaways, I believe.
I do indeed.
Before you run through them, anyone on the line, if you have any questions for Jess after she's gone through a couple of key points to finish, please put them in the chat pane, and I will ask Jess them afterwards.
Fab. So the key takeaways really are just a kind of brief overview of what we've covered then. So step one is to make sure that you have a clear set of qualification criteria. So these are your kind of sales teams criteria that they're using to qualify leads. Identify all of your engagement points on your website, and that's all based around the buying intent that they show and how much buying intent they show. Ranking your engagement points and qualification criteria then based on the buying intent, group the actions together, then assign points, and then build it out in HubSpot.
Easy as that.
Yes, easy as that.
Okay, now the interesting bit for you. First question, you mentioned earlier how obviously if a salesperson has a long list of leads they want to work through, and it's a challenge for them to decide which ones they reach out to first and which ones they look at first. If you were a company that perhaps wasn't generating hundreds of leads a month, was generating maybe like 10 or 15, would you still look to put this in place?
I would. So I think obviously the kind of scale of the preparation that you need to do and the amount of kind of, well, that model, the amount of things that you would need to input into the actual criteria probably wouldn't be as big. But I think it's just useful to get the automation set up and get your sales team familiar with using and understanding what the lead score is. Apart from else, if it gets to the point that you've got a ton of content on your website, it's a huge job to then go back and put together some kind of lead scoring plan. I guess the only thing I would say is that one of the tricky things about lead scoring is that you can, because of the way that it updates in HubSpot, you have to, it's in real time basically. So as soon as you make a change in your lead scoring, then it would affect all of your existing contacts. So basically you want to try and get this right the first time, because making huge kind of large scale changes to your lead scoring setup can be a bit of a pain.
Cool. And so if anyone on the line, Jess, wanted to literally leave this webinar now and go and try and set up their lead scoring in HubSpot, what would be sort of the first step? What would be your advice for how you basically get started?
So I think my main piece of advice would be to don't just jump straight into HubSpot. I think there's a real temptation just to get straight into the tool and build it out. I really would recommend that you do this kind of preparation beforehand. I would make sure you run the model by, so once you put this together, I would suggest that you run that by your sales team, and you make sure that everyone is bought in and agrees with this process. Because like I said, once it's in, it's not that easy to change.
Oh, thank you, Jess. So I think, as we mentioned earlier, we run HubSpot training sessions within our offices in London. These are the dates that we've set for the new year. So if you have any interest at all in sort of coming into our office and being trained by Jess and her team, Violetta, my colleague, heads up all of our HubSpot training services, so Violetta's email is there. Otherwise, you can get in touch with Jess or myself. And last but not least, in 2 weeks' time, our next HubSpot training webinar will be around how to build your buyer personas and how to use your buyer journey stages in order to create content and really sort of target the right customers and the right prospects for your business. So we hope to see you all there, but last but not least, thank you again, Jess, for that.
All right.
And hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.